Welcome to COMM 340, Popular Culture. Things have been progressing here as I've kind of gotten used to doing this online gig. I hope y'all are doing all right. We are literally in uncharted territory with our situation. I don't know, it's pretty crazy. Definitely had like different feelings different days. Some days I'm like, yeah, whatever. Other days I'm like, yeah, no, this isn't cool. But mainly I've just been kind of creating different things for me to do each day that kind of like help me kind of go zen and just have some fun. Like, and fun for me is weird because like I like to work a lot. I'm like a workaholic. So a lot of my zen moments, I'm going to over to my Facebook. I'll show y'all some photos like I do sometimes in class. Oh yeah, I'll show you all that too. Actually, you know what? I'll just go to my timeline here and show you all that way like it was doing. I took my kid for a ride with my wife and friend. There we go. A little choppy. I'm gonna bring it back down. There we go. And so he has a Strider bike, so there's no pedals. We rode 3 miles. He rode 3 miles like that. I was like shocked. This is him looking all BMX. I thought that was pretty fun. So I ride a lot. I think y'all already knew that. I also I've been buying a lot of Legos for my kid, as y'all can tell. So he got this little like male Lego set, and I had also gotten him this Kylo Ren Rey set, and so I thought it was pretty funny. Though I didn't realize I had my kid had swapped the lightsabers, so that's kind of funny too. But yeah, I've just been doing all kinds of stuff, going for like really early rides. Like this was at like, I don't know, 5:30 in the morning. You can see I was still posting. I was posting like at 7:50. So most of y'all were probably asleep, but that's what I do to like kind of work through a lot of my anxiety. I also have gone to my shop and taken like really high-end photos. And so that's been fun and kind of therapeutic. I wear like my mask and my gloves, and I'm all like COVIDed out, I guess. And it was pretty cool because I took like a really nice set of photos. For those that don't know, I edit in Lightroom. So this is kind of like where I work my magic. Since I'm doing this online, I'm screen capturing while I'm on my main computer. So like this is my, what they call it, this is my Lightroom catalog. So I have hundreds of thousands of photos here from '07 all the way to 2020. And and these are just some that I took the other week of equipment. And so what was really cool about that is that I took this photo, and this photo actually, if I go over to twitter.com and I go to Riga Research, that's their handle, I click on them. They actually posted up. It said 14 hours ago. It said, see this Instagram photo by Dreamanoids, which is our hi-fi store. And so that's really cool because it's the photo that I took. So we've been releasing these photos, and actually we have a lot of business. We drop ship to kind of avoid issues with COVID and not running a retail shop. So and I've helped like one customer in person so far, since it's one-on-one, and I totally did it while wearing like my mask and everything. So anyway, so you can see I've been writing, I've been posting up. I even posted up a little video I edited a while back. Washed some cars. So anyways, y'all are like, get to the point. Well, maybe some of y'all want a break. Y'all know I kind of get tangential sometimes. So I'm alive. I'm doing okay. I'm just pushing through. I've been doing like my Zen garden. Like if y'all don't know what a Zen garden is, like a little sand plot. They have like a little rake, and you rake like your sand. Has been power washing, so that's what I've been up to. So this week's topic is electronic games and entertainment or gaming. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the chapter, and then I have some examples to show you all. If you hear kids in the background, it's because there's kids in the background. So if you hear any kids going, like, oh yeah, there's kids. That's what you're hearing. So want to get away, yeah. So this is very timely with how now gaming is like healthy, because you got to stay indoors. So, but yeah, this chapter goes over kind of how gaming evolved. To me, a lot of academics always want to go like 1 nth back, like into the n+1 back. So they're like in the 1950s talking about like Pong or Tennis for Two, a rudimentary game designed to entertain visitors to the Brooklyn Haven National Laboratory. And then really like video games, yeah, here we are, begin in the 70s, and we have arcades, video game consoles, home computers, and for those of y'all that are like into the history of this, I'm going to come back to it. But essentially you have like these game designers and developers making arcade games where you would actually go to an arcade. And what's crazy is that we have a lot of retro arcades still to this day, so you can still go to an arcade and check it out. And it really is somewhat similar. It's just that I think it's even not cooler now, but like a little more informed, in the sense that like when you go there, there's all different types of games. Whereas before it was kind of like I played in arcades in the 80s and 90s, and there were just going to be some key games, and then there were just some other games. Mostly in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s, it was like fighter games, so like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter 2, and then games like NBA Jam, and then there were like gun games like Operation Wolf, and Aerosmith had a game. I know, the band. But yeah, so we kind of had this arcade stuff going on. We had video game consoles, right? So we had Atari, and what was also really big was Nintendo in the 80s, which they'll probably harken back to down here in home. They talk about home computing. So with home computing, again, you kind of had Apple, you had some Atari computers, you had some Radio Shack, you had some IBM PC compatible. Again, a lot of this stuff is written in the age that the writer grew up in. So they're like 10 years younger, or 10 years older than I am, so they're writing about like 10 years back before me. So even the stuff that they're talking about here, while interesting to me from a historical standpoint, like I'm so nerdy, by the way, that I took a history of computing course when I was at UT. So it's not that I'm not into this stuff, it's that I know y'all are like, hey, let's get to the meat of this. So that's why I'm kind of glossing over this. But the Atari 2600 was like a really big, like a seminal console. It talks about the 1980s, the crash, video game crash of 83. This is when it just became oversaturated. There's a whole documentary about this E.T. extraterrestrial game that was made, and how they buried it in the desert, and they really did, and they unearthed it like in a documentary in the 2010s. Here they talk about the rise of Nintendo. Nintendo, one of the things that was really special about Nintendo was that it focused on gameplay, and so their narratives were good, but like their gameplay is what really kind of drew people in. Other consoles, they talk about Sega Master, and there's the Sega Genesis. But Sega, I think to me, was kind of like this interesting bridge between arcade and home console, because they had a lot of games, especially because they went 16-bit pretty quick. Like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter and things like that. The Super Nintendo kind of followed suit, but because it was so gameplay and family oriented, those games were watered down compared to the Sega games. And then it says computer games flourish and innovate. So this is in the 80s and 90s. Gaming, PC gaming really took off. There were a whole slew of different styles of games. There were first-person shooters. There were there were MUDs, which are multi-user dungeons, which was kind of role-playing games, kind of like a predecessor to World of Warcraft. But these think more like text oriented rather than necessarily graphics driven. In the 90s, that's when we kind of have a lot of parallel things happening. We have all these consoles that are vying for space. We have arcades that are kind of like, staying afloat, but aren't necessarily always the leader in innovation anymore because the format itself is driven by putting quarters in. And so that kind of starts to limit how the gameplay actually works. And then they talk about console wars, and this is where when I was kind of bringing up the Super NES and the Sega Genesis. But really what ends up kind of really coming into play is right here. Sony stepped in with the Sony PlayStation. And that's what really kind of killed everybody. Nintendo really did just at that point become known for good gameplay. And then, computer games gain mainstream acceptance. They talk about like Myst, there's Doom, there's Quake, there's Wolfenstein 3D, and there's my kid. And so it really kind of becomes a platform where, like, I played Need for Speed. That was like the original. I know I'm old. 2, 3, Hot Pursuit, Porsche 2000, like all. And when it got to midnight, I kind of checked out. I was like, I'm good. Personally, like the game that I'm probably the best at is Super Tecmo Bowl. Back in the mid 2000s, I had a student tell me he was better, and like he literally brought the Nintendo console over and played me, and I beat him, and he was just like I didn't just beat him, I annihilated him. And he was just shocked, and I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm a one-trick pony, and Super Tecmo Bowl is it. So they talk about online gaming games popularity, and this is where the MMORPG comes in, the massively multiplayer online role-playing game. So that's where, again, World of Warcraft and other bigger games really become big. We have portable gaming systems like the Nintendo Game Boy, which has literally gone all the way to the point that we have the Switch. But the Nintendo DS, I think, was also a huge game changer. Probably doesn't talk too much about it in this book because this book's a little dated. Then we talk about the console wars in the 2000s, which has gone on to this day with the PS5 about to come out. The new Xbox console should be, I don't know, new Xbox 2020. Let's see when it's supposed to come out. 2020 is set to be the year for 8K game consoles. So Microsoft teased its new console at E3 in June of 2019, and the new console is now officially confirmed for November 26th. We'll see what happens with that. So anyways, didn't mean to get sidetracked onto the internet, but I was just kind of looking. It talks about how gaming kind of becomes a niche market, but what also happens is that in the 2000s, Steam from Valve comes together. So you have Valve, which is a Steam, and what this is Valve is the company, Steam is the platform. They end up creating this online content delivery system, which basically everybody starts doing. So you have like Xbox has their platform, the Sony PlayStation Network, and everybody kind of starts going with online delivery of games rather than going in and buying your cartridge or your box or your CD-ROM. It talks about video games today, home consoles. So again, they talk about the PS3, the 360. We're at the PS4 right now, about to be on the PS5. Influential contemporary games. So one of the things in the 2000s that was really interesting was like the physical interaction with games. So when we had the Wii, when we had Rock Band, Guitar Hero, you literally started getting to the point where people were physically interacting with their gaming, beyond like Duck Hunt or the Power Pad, or these games started really having some tactile feedback. No Starbucks today. Anybody notice? All right. So then we have Grand Theft Auto, which basically was like this huge sandbox playground, and it made the narrative so that you could really kind of start creating multiple narratives within one game, and they also just really did well. I mean, the gameplay again really resonated with people. Same thing with World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. I have a whole. I'll actually show you all that a little bit. Let me come over here. SWAT Dojo. Let me see here. Forget it. So I'll pull this up so I won't forget. Let's see here. There it is. Xbox Wrap. Okay. So then we have Wii Sports and Fit, which I already brought up. Like I said, I'm just kind of going through this. If this is the chapter that you're going to get into, like, make sure obviously you read it and or check out the links I'm showing. Then we talk about gaming culture, the subculture of geeks, the effects of video games on other types of media. So one of the really cool things is that as video gaming has evolved, the culture of video gaming has gotten really intricate. It's really spurred off. There are all these different sects and different cross-pollinization between TV, movies, comic books, gaming, and then like all these other kinds of cultural spaces, like whether it's music or politics, pretty much anything. I'm trying to get this light a little better for y'all. There we go. I don't know. Yeah, so they talk about television, film. This is the kind of the stuff that's pretty evident. Machinima is real interesting. It's where you take video games and you use them to create narratives. So you kind of create shows based around video games. So it's like you take the players and you have them interact, and you can do like voiceovers and yeah. So video games as art. That's a whole nother kind of layer where people create video games that have aesthetics that go beyond just the gameplay. Yeah. Let me see what else. Controversial issues, violence in video games. So, as you all know, this is controversial to this day. Does it? When you play Grand Theft Auto, is it really trying to normalize like doing things that you could never really do in society, and to the point that you feel like you could go do it in society? I think that's a really good question. And there's a whole field in media studies that looks into violence in video gaming. That's where the ESRB, Entertainment and Software Rating Board, comes in. May contain mature sexual themes, more intense violence, or strong language. For me, it's really interesting. Like, I don't play super violent games, but I've seen some really super violent games and sexually explicit games. And I don't know, it's not my cup of tea, but neither are horror films. I believe in free speech, so I'll just leave it at that and let you make up your decision. Some of y'all may really get into this. I know some of y'all are religious, and that might be a project you could do based around this of, how do you hold that intention when you have gaming tournaments based around games that are really violent? What does that mean? What are the implications of that? Video game addiction, which is really interesting because you can get addicted to a lot of different things, and I really do believe in video game addiction. So it's really interesting right now because video game addiction is something that they've been pushing awareness of for over 20 years. And with us having to go in, I think they kind of just see it as a lesser of two evils. Like, they'd rather have people stay in and play video games than be going out and socializing. So that's a really interesting kind of space to talk about contemporarily. If you were going to do something around that, sexism in games, you won't see too many people that look like me dressed in a bikini with a sword. And that has to do with like the heteronormative constructs of media, whether it's in movies, books, television, or gaming. And so there's a lot of sexism, but what's really, I guess, draws a line between traditional media and gaming is that you're having human interaction on a lot of these platforms. And so, the hypersexualization of characters is always something that's kind of, it's not kind of, that can be very problematic and cause people to kind of normalize the way they talk and the lingo that they use. And then you go back into reality and it's just, that's not reality. This is just a fantasy that people are creating. And so when it does become reality for people and they kind of bring it back in, that's where I think things can get super problematic. Lucy, what's Lucy's last name? Gosh dang it. Well, our colleague here in TAMU, she writes a lot about feminism in gaming, and I would recommend checking out some of her texts. I'll send out a link with it. So, blurring boundaries between video games, information, entertainment, and communication, video games in the social world of sports. This kind of talks about virtual worlds and societal interactions, which is kind of more going with the online gaming, which is basically actually become normalized now. So this part is actually really contemporary in terms of like a contemporary history of how we got to kind of social gaming, like Farmville, or if any of y'all ever had like Webkins, mobile phones in gaming, video games and their messages. Other games in the genre include a great deal of content that informs players about current events. One example is Cutthroat Capitalism, where users play the part of Somali pirates who are carrying out kidnapping and piracy missions. So, you can have like cause-based games that are really interesting. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much the chapter there. Yep. All right, so let's come over here. I'll go over some stuff, and then we'll move on forward. So, okay, what are some things I recommend checking out? Well, if you have Amazon Prime, I highly recommend, if you're into this this scene that we're talking about, I highly recommend Indie Game the Movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It's with your access. I think you can rent it for like $3 or $4. If you're into gaming at all, it's a really great documentary. This is the trailer. It came out in 2010. And it chronicles 3 different people trying to make indie games.
I'm determined to make video games, and I make video games because I can. I mean, it's the sum total of every expressive medium of all times made interactive. Like, how is that not? It's awesome.
My whole career has been me trying to find new ways to communicate with people because I desperately want to communicate with people, but I don't want the messy interaction of having to make friends and talk to people because I probably don't like them.
And it's not just a game. Like, I'm so closely attached to it. This is my identity. It's Fez. I'm Guy making Fez. That's about it.
Making it was about, let me take my deepest flaws and vulnerabilities and put them in the game.
So I highly recommend checking this out. I have so much to show. I'm not even going to show you the whole trailer. But again, on Amazon Prime, Indie Game the Movie, highly recommend checking it out. For those of y'all that are into like making video games, maybe y'all want to do something where it's like, I decided to study the culture of video gaming by trying to make a video game. I highly recommend Game Maker Studio. You can try it for free. They have all these little like kind of template-based games that you can create and interact with. It's a good program to start with. If you want to learn about kind of how 3D imaging and gaming works, the Unreal Engine is really a great place to start. This is going to be more advanced. But maybe I'll just want to research it and do like a story about, you know, what the latest and greatest in game development is. You may want to start with Unreal and then look at other engines people are using. If you're into gaming history, I recommend looking at the Gaming Historian. Like my other game that I'm really good at but I'm not a master at is Tetris, and he has like this 60-minute like crazy documentary about Tetris that I really like, and he has other ones that are really good. Like he even does this thing where he's like, what facts did I get wrong, Gaming Historian? So he goes back over all of his videos and points out mistakes he made. But he has this one that he released 3 months ago. It's the story of Super Mario Brothers 3, Gaming Historian. That's really good. So yeah, Gaming Historian, recommend checking him out. If you're into how game development started, and then also kind of from a feminist perspective, this is a very short 5-minute piece, which I would normally show in class, that you can go and check out. So it's on Motherboard is the channel. It's called Meet the Unsung Female Programmer Behind Centipede. So I'll just play.
Centipede is a video game that I programmed for Atari. I was one of maybe a handful of women in America who had assembly language experience at all. I don't want history to die untold.
So I recommend checking this one out. There's this is a documentary called World of Warcraft, Looking for Group, and it kind of explores the physical interactions with the game itself and the culture that it's based around, not in terms of the game story, but in terms of the physical human interaction. Highly recommend checking this one out. For those that are into console gaming, you could do a whole research project just around all the different kinds of gaming platforms, or your favorite one, and delve into the generations of it and how they've been successful or failed. Or same thing for PC gaming. Some of y'all might be really into the hardware itself or the software, or like Linux gaming, or gaming on your Apple computer and kind of going into that. That's why I kind of brought this up. Mobile gaming, same thing. It's like, the history of mobile gaming maybe. So going from Snake to playing Super Mario Brothers on your phone might be of interest. And I'll get back to this. I don't want to forget this. That's important. But not right now. New Xbox, that's what we used earlier. This was the Steam example. For those that are super creative, like I had a student back in 9 years ago make a rap about Xbox. I'll just show you the very kind of like, 30 seconds or a minute of it. And if you want to come back, you just look him up. His name's SWAT Dojo. This was at UIW when I taught there.
I'm here for my interview.
Mr. James, we spoke on the phone, didn't we?
Write some notes.
So you play Xbox. So could you elaborate on your experiences?
Elaborate.
Oh yeah, ripping gamers across the world. Anyone that's ever lost a game to me, this one goes out to you.
Get your controllers out. Turn those 360s on. You better check your inverted and shit too, bro. This is game's about to start.
I play Xbox, game and tag is sex rocks. I be owning on the newbies all up in my socks. I play Xbox, game and tag is sex rocks. And if you scared, you should be playing with your wood blocks. I play Xbox, game and tag is sex rocks. I be owning on the newbies all up in my socks. I play Xbox, game and tag is sex rocks. And if you scared, you should be playing with your wood blocks.
I play Xbox, bitch, I'm the top fox. Modern Warfare is the shit, it really rocks.
So I think you get the idea. It's like a spoof, kind of like a Lonely Island style skit. They wrote the song, performed the song. It was really funny because like his this guy Philip over here is the one that produced it. His dad was like a dean of the college, so I don't know. It was really funny to me. So yeah, there's all different kind, like just on gaming and popular culture. There's so much ground to cover. It's amazing. It's a really fun topic. I highly recommend just kind of going around and seeing if there's something that you find in that, because it's kind of like what we're gonna go over. I think social media is next after this. Let me see here. The internet. That's a very similar kind of space where you can do all this stuff. So I have this up not because I'm trying to get you to like and subscribe my channel, but because I posted 2 videos other than my check-ins, and they show you how to access Adobe Creative Cloud on campus through your computer. And so if you have decent internet, you can use like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, and Adobe Audition. Probably not that great, but I mean, give it a go if you're kind of nerdy. I mean, this is open to everybody. Everybody on campus can log in. You log in with your NetID. And so there is a Windows application, there's a Mac application, and then there's like a universal web application that you can use to log in. And so I'm just adding this as a tidbit. So last but not least, let's talk about your final project, right? So I get a lot of emails asking me, are we having a final exam? There's no final exam, okay? No final exam. You're going to do a 4-minute video, so twice as long as your last project, and it really is 4 minutes. I will stop watching at 4 minutes, okay? It's a hard 4 minutes. It doesn't have to be 4 minutes, but up to 4 minutes. And it can be on any chapter that you didn't already do, the one that you've done. And it can be on any lecture. So again, like you all saw how I went through the book. You see how I went through some links. Like you can take any of that. You can take stuff that that the links. That's amazing. I can add extra light by putting my hands over here. And it will literally be fine. I'm looking for you to, again, like take something you're interested in, take some theory and skills, aka the book and the lecture, take your heart, rub it together, and make some kind of analysis, some kind of give me something to think about from what we've been learning. Does that make sense? Is that cool? All y'all's grades should be put in. If you don't have a grade, like you need to hit me up, because you should totally have a grade at this point. And I think y'all see all of y'all did really well. I was really excited about y'all's projects. So I'm not worried about this one. Make sure you plan ahead. Things are probably going to get busier the next 2-3 weeks. And this is the last, we're in the last stretch. I mean, we've got this one, and then this one. And yeah, we're hitting the end right here. We're not even going to have to use an exam day, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let you all turn it in on that day. Your project will just be due this day. So I'm going to make a rubric, and I'm going to have all the finite details, just like I did for the midterm. I'm just not there yet. I too have been playing like multiple hats, because I have to watch my kid and help out and do a bunch of stuff. But yeah, we'll get around to that. Last but not least, please send me an email if you made it this far, because I'm trying to see who's kind of tuned in and if y'all are watching these. So I hope y'all are having a great day. I will be back next week with social media. And also, I'll be sending an email out with an announcement because I'm going to have a Ask Me Anything YouTube session. But I'll be promoting that through a separate thing. So that's why I'm not even worried about mentioning it in this video too much. So take it easy, and I'll see y'all next week.